Hello everyone. I would like to show you another game from the Geneva Grand Prix FIDE tournament that is going on right now. And this game is from round 6. With the white pieces, we have Grandmaster Salem. And with the black pieces, Hou Yifan. E4, E5, knight F3, knight C6, bishop C4, bishop C5, Giuoco Piano, C3, knight F6, attacking the E pawn, of course, and D3, which is the main continuation nowadays. You rare is the lines with D4 and leading to fast fireworks, but then the game just dwindles out where black equalizes. So grandmasters, of course, through years of experience and trial and error, have opted for a slower positional game, keeping pieces on the board and slowly trying to outplay black. This opening has surged in popularity once again because the Ruy Lopez has been such a hard nut to crack for modern GMs, especially due to the Berlin defense. And so you see this re-emergence of this once obscure opening that you would hardly ever see played between two grandmasters in a serious tournament, but now it's everywhere. So D3, castle, bishop G5. Again, most of the time here you will see castles from white first. Other moves are just simply dropping the bishop back to B3. Why is that? Because in many of the lines, black will seek to play D5 at some point, and bishop B3 just gives white more options. So instead of being forced to capture on D5 or just forced to lose a tempo with the bishop, bishop B3 kind of with that in mind gives white a little bit more flexibility in how to react once black advances D5. So you'll see that move. And in the game, however, bishop G5 was played, initiating a pin, which has proven not to be so dangerous, especially with the pawn still on D7, as Hou Yifan shows. She just simply drops the bishop back to E7. She didn't even have to do that, but that's one of the remedies to dealing with this pin when you have not played D6 yet, that you can just drop the bishop back. Also, another usual move is H6, asking the question to the bishop first. Bishop drops back to H4, and then bishop E7. I wanted to also mention that usually Hou Yifan is on the white side of this opening, and I don't see too many games with her playing the black side. So it is interesting that she's basically picked up the black side here. Maybe it's something that she saw where she felt that the opening posed no problems for black. So in this game, bishop E7 was played. A4, D6, knight BD2, and notice white's delaying castling, which is some, it happens from time to time. Sometimes white will opt to try to provoke some type of weakness out of black. For instance, maybe try to get him to play H6 and then use that hook, so to speak, to start a pawn storm on the king side or what have you. So always, be mindful of, of those type of things. So knight BD2 was played, H6, bishop takes F6, bishop takes F6. This weakens, and white's plan is becoming more and more clear here, is this weakens black's control over the D5 square. Remember, that's one of the major themes, one of the major plans in the opening. There's other plans for black here, but to get in D5, what this exchange does is white gives up his bishop pair, and now he exercises more control over D5. Knight F1 with the typical transfer of the knight to the e3 squared. Sometimes it goes to g3, but again, remember, white's plan is he's locking down d5 right here, and he's basically trying to play a positional game, just restricting black's possibilities. So he's basically in for a long game. So here we go, knight e7, and this move, I love knight e7. You see this a lot in this opening, because sometimes you have the plan of c6 d5, and then, which is one of the options, but the knight is also useful for aiding black in the king side attack with moves like knight g6 and then landing on f4 at times. So it's a very useful and flexible move here. So knight e3, right? You know, more pressure here. c6. Okay, so black is not really able to play for d5 right away here, because after queen b3, that adds additional piece, right, along with the knight and the bishop and the pawn on e4, which just makes it difficult to get in this move for black. Okay, you would just simply take that. Rook b8 is played, frees this bishop now. Queen to a2, and now here is plan B, so to speak, which is knight g6. So d5 is not really going to happen for black here, unless, you know, she takes additional preparations. So knight g6, rook d1, and white is planning on pushing in the center, but white has to do something soon about the king safety. To open the center up with being in the middle of the board is not too wise. And now, again, as I mentioned with plan B, knight g6, and the idea coming to knight f4 with the additional plan of f5 and f4. And this is why black plays bishop g5 here. Okay, bishop g5 clears the f pawn for advance. Of course, it can't right now because it's pinned, but it's part of the plan. So bishop g5 is played, and what this is going to do is weaken white's grip, not only on d5 but on f5 also. Okay, if knight g5, then this helps black bring a piece over to the king side, or attacking possibilities. And then, like, say for instance, castle here, knight h4, and this knight is protecting g2, but this just makes black's task a little bit easier. For instance, king h1, and then just bishop g4. This knight on e3 is holding together everything, but black is comfortable at this point. So instead of taking, Salem just castled. Hou Yifan just got rid of the bishop on e3, which is a powerful defensive piece, as we've shown in the last variation. F takes e3, and now queen e7 here. The f pawn must be defended in order to move the king away, and that's what that move is for. d4, king h8, queen a3, again putting more pressure positionally on black. The queen wants to be able to remove itself from the situation, but white puts this pressure here, and then in some lines, say if this knight wasn't here, some lines white could just take, and the pawn capture would be impossible due to the lack of protection of the queen. So there's a lot of little nuances and subtleties going on here. Bishop g4, okay, addressing that situation partially and pinning the knight. Bishop drops back to A2. Rook B D8. Okay, so now we have more protection on the D pawn. H3. Bishop takes F3. Rook takes F3, and finally F5. Okay, and some of these plans take a few moves to realize because your opponent has moves too. So he's trying to implement his own plan. You're trying to implement yours. But again, the general plan for black, in lieu of not being able to get D5 in, is attack with F5. D takes E5 here. And again, we see the exploitation of this pin as D takes E5. Rook takes D8. And let's say queen takes D8 would be better. Then rook takes F5. Rook takes F5. E takes F5. And we have to say white is a little better. Okay. We enjoy this 3-2 majority over here on the queen side. And they, even after, you know, for instance, I don't know, let's make a random move, knight H4. This move F6 is really powerful. The idea behind that is queen B3, threatening mate on G8, as well as queen B7. So it's a dangerous position if Hou Yifan tries to take with the pawn. So she made the righteous decision. Queen takes E5. And although this pawn is a little weak, white has these double pawns in the center of the board also. Queen B4, another probing move, looking at B7, still focused on D6. Here, Hou Yifan makes a interesting, enterprising and interesting move, and it's the move F4. Now, she had opportunity to go in an endgame here, which I think would have been better. For example, queen takes E4, queen takes E4, F takes, and you see all of black's pawns are connected, except the ones in front of the king, which is perfectly fine. This is just a sample line. You have this bishop versus knight ending with the rooks. But I like black here in this ending. And this is what I'm talking about. His pawn structure is a bit better. And of course, white will try to weaken that. And I like black here. Better pawn structure. And his king is a bit closer and accessible to the center. And there's a lot of weaknesses with the white pawns in this particular variation. But she didn't want to go into the endgame. Perhaps she's thinking about these attacking opportunities here. Now, F4 was played. And after F4, now Salem offers his own, excuse me. I don't know if you can hear the dog barking in the background. A little puppy, actually. But after F4, Salem offers his own queen trade with queen D4. And of course, Hou Yifan's not going to take that and just help white out like that. Okay. Let me show you the alternative. The alternate move is E takes F4. And this will be met by knight takes F4. What's the idea behind knight takes F4? The idea is, again, I'll just give black another move. The idea is to play knight E2 check with a vicious attack. Okay, the game is almost over at this point. So that's how strong a threat that was. For example, king H1, rook takes F3, G takes F3, just denuding the queen. Excuse me, denuding the king. Queen G3 with mate coming up shortly. If you want, you could pause the video and just figure that out, that mate. If king f1, the same spirit. G takes f3, except this time the knight is being attacked, so the queen comes to h2. Alright. And black is winning there also. So e takes f4 is out of the question due to knight takes f4. Therefore, queen d4. Yifan says, no way, Jose. Plays queen g5, wanting to keep that fire burning within the possibilities for attack going. And now e takes f4 is played. Knight takes f4, threatening checkmate. First of all, right, queen takes g2 check, also threatening knight e2 with this fork of king and queen. So knight on f4 is very, very powerful and thematic. Thematic theme in chess. Very strong, and this is why White tries to get his knight to f5 in open position. You see this in the Ruy Lopez and Giuoco Piano. Anytime the pawns are on e4 and e5, this is one of the battles that goes on. So queen d2, dealing with the mate and the fork on e2. Rook f6, again another common theme. And that's what makes you a master, is just having mastery over these concepts, the small principles, and putting them all together. So queen d2, and now you see the old rook lift. Right? You open the F file, and how many times have you seen that? You open the F file, then you move the rook from F8 to F6 and to the G file or H file. King H2, sensing danger and not wanting to get mated. Rook DF8, simply moving the other piece over to the F file. Now you have maximum power, and now you have problems here. There's all type of sacrificial themes, here, that's starting to linger, around the white king. Rook G3, attacking the queen, but Yifan has a nice place for the queen. That's E5, and there's this like X-ray type pin scenario going on here. For instance, if the knight was gone, this rook would be pinned, and if the rook does move, there's nasty discovered checks opportunities here. So this is why queen d4 is played, because Salem realizes that the queen cannot stay there. Yifan does not want to trade queens, and so therefore plays queen h5. Now again, there's a threat. This threat right here, e2, knight e2. What are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about the threat of e2? And I suggest you pause the video and think about this position for about 5 to 10 minutes. What are you going to do about the threat of knight e2 in this position? Or is there anything that you can do about it? Does rook d2 work? Right? That's it. Or should black just, or excuse me, so white should just resign here? What do you think? So if you want, you could pause the video and analyze this. This is actually a fantastic position. I'm gonna go on now, since you had enough time to pause it if you like, or not. But there's an amazing move here that actually could have saved this game. White here played queen d2, which is a natural looking move. He wants to get out of the fork, so he moves his most valuable piece. Knight e2 was played anyway because you can attack the rook. And the problem is, again, this diagonal. Once the rook moves off this diagonal, it's curtains. Here Selah played rook f3, and then after rook takes f3, it was all over. He had to resign. Okay, the idea being again, I'll give black some additional moves. The threat being rook takes h3, g takes h3, rook f2, king h1, queen h3. There's no way to stop. There's no way to stop without losing, everything. The move rook takes h3. Okay. For example, if you did g takes f3, then the other rook would just come crashing in. All right. So after rook f3, rook takes f3. He was forced to resign. A truly great, and that was only 31 moves. A brilliant attacking game with the black pieces by Yifan. And I'm happy. Like, I like seeing strong female players playing in the male competitions, and I hope to see more. So after queen d2, there was no defense. The game was over. Queen d2 was a natural looking move, but ultimately it was a mistake here. Rook d2 also, just winds up losing the rook. So for instance, rook e2, then knight e2, you see the fork is still in effect. So you just drop the exchange, and so the game goes on, but you definitely busted at this point. So if you thought of rook e1 as a defense, that's not an adequate defense either. Some of you might have said, hey, just resign. It's so queen d2, rook e1 are no good. But there's one defense here for black. Excuse me, for white. I found it to be this awesome. And it's e5. And you might be saying, what in the world? How does e5 work? No, e5 works because, let me show you, against the main threat. So if you have knight e2 here, notice the pawn on e5 is attacking here, right? And remember this bishop. This bishop is dormant, but this bishop is cutting off the squares to this king. And I mean, that's it's easy to see from the comfort of home on the computer and everything. But it was just amazing. I had to show it to you. So e5, and let's say knight e2. Of course, wouldn't be the best move here at this point. But let's just say you tried to carry through the threat. E takes f6. Knight takes d4, right? So now you got the queen. However, f takes g7. King h7, right? Remember, the bishop is here on a2, covering the diagonal. So now you have this check. The king is forced, and now you make a knight instead of a queen. King h8 is forced, and then rook g8 is checkmate. So that's just beautiful variation. I don't know if you'll see it in other analysis, depending on how thoroughly the game is looked at, but that is a brilliant line right there. Like I said, if knight e2 there after e5, you can put like a double exclamation mark there. Knight e2, e takes f6, knight d4, f takes d7, and so that is a saving move for white in that position. That is the saving move there, the only saving move in the position. Now let's look at black's correct response there. D takes e5, queen d7. All right, g6. Oh, sorry about that. E5, D. Here, remember, here's our saving line. So E5, double exclam. And now there's a couple of possibilities here, but let's just give a quick example because this did not happen. D takes E5 and queen D7 and G6, rook G4. This right here could be met by knight takes H3, which looks pretty spectacular, but only leads to a draw. G takes h3, rook f2 check, rook g2, rook g2, and we will have this perpetual right here. But I just want to show that as a sample line. I mean, the game is still would still be dramatically, unbalanced. I mean, still a lot of play here left. But so maybe somebody would have found that. I don't know, but that was like I said, when I saw that, I was like, whoa, that's a fantastic fantastic continuation right there. I mean, even instead of d takes e5, rook g6. Rook g6 is interesting also. Of course, I don't have the time to look at all of these things, but rook g6 is definitely open for investigation. But to me, that looks okay for white because I know generally white would like to, trade some of these pieces down that are attacking, around the king here. So like a move like rook g6, I think would help white out. Excuse me. And that would fall into the same category. Queen takes e5, again helping white relieve some of the stress on this position. But needless to say, Salem was not able to come up with the move e5. He did not find that in a position, to protect from the threat of e2, knight e2, and queen d2, knight e2, rook f3, and it was all over. So please like and subscribe, and I'm gonna do one more video on today's round. I think it's probably the Grishik game. That was an interesting game to me, so I'll see you there.